Okay, so today we talking about money. More specifically, we talking about the dollar, the US dollar. And I think we should learn after tonight's perspective why I'm so big on investing. Okay, why it's so important to invest. So, let's see, where should we start? So let's do this. First let's so we talk about the US dollar. And there's always a lot of talk and concern and controversy about the dollar not being as valuable as it used to be. The dollar is always losing value. Um, there's talk about countries that's not accepting the dollar, things of that nature. See, okay. I'm not gonna front. I really don't know how to talk about this without just going into the whole etymology, if you will, of money. Because it's one of them things where if you know where you come from, perhaps you can know where you're going. Perhaps. So let's bring it all the way back. We're gonna have a money history lesson. Okay? Way back in the day, what did we do? Before there was a such thing as like money, what did we do? It was trade, the barter system. You have a skill or a resource. I have a skill or a resource. We just so happen to have, I just so happen the skill or resource that you need. You just so happen to have the skill or resource I need. We determine what's fair amongst each others with those skills and resources, and we make a trade. That's called the barter system. I may have a bunch of cattle on deck. You may have, you may be skilled at carpentry. I may need some carpentry skilled person to build something for me. You may need some cattle. I pay you in cattle, you pay me in service. Or maybe I needed some wheat and maybe you got the wheat on deck. And that's how it worked. We would just trade amongst each other, right? What's the issue with that? What if I got cattle, right? And I need some wheat, but ain't nobody around me got wheat. There's people, they got cotton. You know what I'm saying? They got skills in carpentry. Somebody may have some whores. I'm just keeping it a buck. This is what happened. Okay? But I need some goddamn wheat. And ain't nobody got no wheat. But I have a form of currency, if you will, because I wouldn't say that they even thought of it like that at that time. But it's like useless. I have something of value, but it's not really valuable because nobody needs it at this time. So now I can't get what I want. You understand what I'm saying? So once people became really conscious of that, they started using things to use as really a form of credit. This is why I say it's almost, I almost say money isn't even real, because the money is really just the value. Okay? The money is really just the value, because that's the inception of it all. Gold eventually, if it wasn't the first, it eventually became like massively used. So, okay, it's like, okay, cool. I may have the cattle, I may be skilled in this, and people may have these things, but at the end of the day, if I need something, I know that I can give this person gold. Gold did what? We knew if somebody had, based off of this principle, if somebody had gold, that meant that they have served to the quality of life, whether by providing somebody with some wheat or cattle or whatever, or maybe they did a service for somebody. Either way, we know we can't just be trading resources and skills back and forth, but what we can do is we can give this person gold, and this gold is a representation of the debt that this person paid to improving quality of life, if not for all of humanity, at least for one person. That was giving them their credit. And they could then use this in exchange. This is the first money, if you will, but I call it credit. I say the money is not even real. I say we just get rid of the whole, man, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's throw my money thing off to the side right now. Let's continue with the history lesson, okay? So we know it went from the barter system to trading gold, and then like the gold, you know, and it is a point in time, but it was like just, you know, gold rocks and shit like that. Then eventually it got sophisticated to enough where it was just like coins, and then that wasn't even convenient enough to be carrying around and things like that. But it was gold for a while. Now this is where things started to get tricky. Banks pop up, because banks didn't exist at first. And the gold wasn't, like I said, it wasn't so easy to transport from one place to the other. It was heavy, especially if somebody got like a lot of gold, right? So banks pop up, and their whole thing was, okay, look, how about we hold the gold for you? Okay, we know since gold is inconvenient to be carrying around, it gets heavy and all of that. I tell you what, we'll hold the gold for you. Okay, and then whenever you need whatever little bit of gold that you need, you can just come holler at us. We'll give it to you. People said bet. They started depositing their gold into these bank accounts. Okay, and we're gonna even so I don't want to get ahead of myself again. Time progresses. That's how it works. Then the banks was like, so because people will come and ask to borrow gold, like, yo, I know y'all got gold in there because everybody gives y'all gold. I ain't got no gold right now. I know my account is empty, but yo, I need some I need some money. You know what I'm saying? So then what banks started doing, even before that, but what banks would do is they would lend the gold out sometimes, and say, bring it back with interest. But aside from that, banks hoarded the gold. And they wouldn't even, when people would come to get their gold back, they wouldn't even necessarily give them the gold back. What would they give them? They'd give them a receipt. Matter of fact, it may even show on here. It may or may not. I haven't looked at this in detail in a while. I think I got some cash in here. Okay, I got a 50 in here. Let me see. Hold on. Because I want to say, if it's not on today's currency, I want to say there's a point in time where your dollars actually had the word receipt on it. But on theirs they just call them notes. So, but I don't know. Check like cash back that was circulating in the 90s. I want to say that it had the word receipt on there. But either way, that's what I got $55 on. That's what this was. These were receipts for the gold that you have. This was like an IOU. This is proof. This was the bank saying, yo, this person has gold with us, and this note is this is the receipt for it. So then the receipts at that point became just as good as the gold. It was, I would say, another form of credit. Credit backed by the gold. Okay? So now we went from a point of actually giving people value to gold being the proxy for value, to now there is receipts for the gold that was a proxy for value. Now we are 2 degrees removed from what the real value money really is. Okay? Because once again, like I said, I would define gold as the credit. And then the receipts is that credit of that credit. Okay? Yeah, we probably won't go into like actual credit, but that's the next step, right? It became a point in time to where now it was like, yo, you don't even have the cash. You could just front them and say, yo, I know this person, based on our opinion of this person, he's going to have the receipts for the gold for contributing to society sooner or later. So we're just going to give it to him now. Just let him get it. And that's the credit we're familiar with today with the credit cards, money that you haven't even worked for. Right? They just expect you to get it. But that's taking the conversation somewhere else. Let's take back to the actual dollars. Cool. And it was a point in time when the dollar was backed by gold. Right? So, and we fast forward, right? Now we're in America at this point. There's banks. These receipts have evolved to actual like currency, right? Dollars. So now, what's happening? There's other banks. Banks are saying it's good business because people are just giving them product. Their product is the actual money. Or at that point, gold. At that point, the product was the actual gold. Today, it's just the actual receipts of the gold because we're not on the gold standard anymore. So, now, the thing is this. It was a point in time, like credit, like it was really illegal for banks to even give out credit. Like giving out credit that wasn't legal. Just about 100 years ago wasn't legal. So that's where the birth of the loan sharks came from. Like if somebody had it like that, they'll just lend the money out, you know, and y'all come up with your own agreement. Some loan sharks may, deal with you a certain way if you didn't oblige by the contract you set forth with one another. But that was that. But anyway, so banks kind of, there's banks popping up, people putting their money in banks, people is banking. They open up checkers accounts, savings accounts all willy-nilly. But rumors would always happen to where one of the banks is about to run out of money, because what was happening was this. It got to a point where it's called bank runs. So let's say, even like right now, let's say you heard a rumor that Wells Fargo is about to run out of money. What would that cause you to do if you have an account with Wells Fargo? You will run to Wells Fargo, withdraw all your cash out of Wells Fargo and go somewhere. But that's bad because that's the business's product. You're taking their product from them. And these banks are going out of business because people will hear these rumors, whether true or not, and then they'll take all their money out. Banks will collapse. And then when the banks collapse, the banks is like the backbone of the economic system because they're the ones lending out the money, kind of, giving people some type of support. So, some people saw opportunity in this. Perhaps these are the same people who started these rumors. Everything I'm about to tell you, absolute fact. Or maybe not put absolute. Well, yeah, I'll put absolute fact. I'm not even going to make any assertions. I'm just going to tell you some facts. There was a group of people, because this is in response to the bank runs. It was banks going under left and right, and the economy was always super volatile. It was always uncertainty because people didn't know what was going on, right? Because they're like, yo, all these banks run out of money, I gotta get my money out of there. And it was like it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like banks might have been cool if people went and ran and took all their money out all the damn time. So, they were also, and the reason why this was so dangerous is because they did what they call fractional reserve lending, where banks will lend out more money than they actually have. So they may have $1 million on deck, but they'll lend out like 3 million, something like that. But hold on. In response to these bank runs, a group of people got together and met on an island called Jekyll's Island. What a spooky name. They have a meeting. They say, yo, what we gonna do? We don't really know everything that took place at this meeting because we wasn't invited. We just know the aftermath of it. Okay? It was a dozen people, maybe a few, maybe 2 dozen. If that. It may not even been that many. But all these people were wealthy. Like everybody who met on this island, these people were like hella money. These are the people who was actually saving the banks at times, sometimes, or helping the banks, lending, putting money in the banks. So the idea, they come up with this idea. Not everybody agrees, but majority of them do. They put forth this idea, and the government wasn't so accepting of the idea. Some people just wasn't so accepting of the idea. But the people who matter, who weren't accepting of the idea that they came up with on this island called Jekyll, and Jekyll's Island is like in Georgia somewhere, I believe, around Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, somewhere around that area. This is around the time when Titanic, y'all seen the movie Titanic? Facts. The people who matter, right? The movers and the shakers who actually matter, who were opposed to the idea that they came up with on this goddamn island called Jekyll, just so happened to be on the Titanic, and the people who of course who were in favor of the idea, who were supposed to be on the Titanic, just so happened to change their mind and not get on Titanic at the last minute. I'm not asserting that they made sure that the Titanic sank. I'm just saying that was a convenient event to take place. Because the idea that was thought of and came up with on this island was known today as the Federal Reserve. What is their role as it pertains to money? They control all the money. They are the ones, they are like the bank of the banks. They are like when we say, yo, they're printing all this money, that's the Federal Reserve doing that. They used to actually literally print it. Now they could just press some buttons. The reason why half of the money in circulation today in June of 2021, half of that money came from the Federal Reserve just printing it, in response to the coronavirus with the stimulus checks, unemployment, airline bailouts, things of that nature. They're just printing money willy-nilly. Federal Reserve does that. Just how they could print money, they can restrict money and stop printing money and let things tighten up a little bit. They control the interest rates. They set the interest rates for banks to borrow. This is why I talked about the Illuminati has the stock market rigged. I always say, yes, that's a fact, because they actually control it. Now, just think about that for a minute, because this kind of goes to my money point a little bit. They have us thinking that the end-all, be-all is money. I said this before. A lot of people's goals is just to become somebody, just to make six figures or more, make $1 million. But make the six figures for what? Make the $1 million for what? Money is not the end all be all. I would even say it don't exist because it's just credit that is supposed to be backed by some actual value that you have shared with the world. And this credit is nothing other than a tool to help you bring this value to the world as much as things has flipped today. Since now today we can actually get the credit before we even create the value. That's where we at now. That's actually the standard model. What does a business do? They go and seek funding so that they can use the funding to create the value, as opposed to creating the value first and then the funding comes to them. The tool is actually needed to push the value that you created out there. In 90% of the cases, most businesses fail because they don't have the funding. Okay, but maybe I'm getting ahead of myself again. The Federal Reserve now. Just think, these are the people who run the world. They have the power because they literally create and eliminate, because they burn cash now. And they could, and today I'd imagine they could probably just delete money out of circulation. They control the thing that everybody wants the most. They literally created it and they print it. And then they restrict it. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's up to you if you want to believe that they want to make sure that the Titanic sank and all that type of shit. But that's the events that took place. The people who matter, right? Of course, there's probably everyday Joes who just wasn't in favor, but the people who matter, who actually could stop it, it just so happened to end up dead. And the people who wanted it to happen just so happened to always stay alive. Shortly after that, they take the dollar off the gold standard, which allowed them and enabled them to print money out of thin air. Now they have total control. It doesn't have to be backed by anything. It doesn't have to be backed by anything. So where we're at today, and what else do? They fund wars because they can make money off of both sides. Now, war is a money-making thing, and they are the one issuing currencies to different countries, because it's not just with America. I mean, they do this with different countries. Different countries have different central banks. Some of us have the same central bank, some of us have different central banks. So what essentially that means, currency, your nation's currency, our nation's currency, is essentially backed by the military. So as long as another country can't whoop your ass, your currency is good. As good as good as that country wants it to be. Like I said, people always talk about, the dollar's losing value, the dollar's losing value. First of all, that's kind of the goal. But let me tell you what else. China actually devalues their currency more than normal. And they do this because it's to their benefit, because it allows them to have an advantage in the trades. When your currency is too expensive, countries don't really want to trade with you because they really can't afford it like that. Because at this point, what we're doing to actually create some value, now we're talking about the gross domestic product. So like all this money printing we're doing right now, right? But there's been other things, right, that stopped it from being just straight up hyperinflation. But let's say those other things was going bad, or even the direction we're going now, because things can still get bad in the future. What will save us is another technological revolution, or some type of revolution, some type of crazy value. What always saved us prior is technology and improved quality of life so great that countries or whoever didn't have a choice but to fuck with us, because this is the country that created the value. So now we know the game. Now we know the name of the game on a global scale is countries need to have crazy protection of what they create, right? And they need to create the value, or perhaps they need to go to countries that's not so well protected and get their and gain control of that value. Gain control of that value. So we know that the Federal Reserve, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, they're controlling the money. They control the issuance of the money and the interest rates of the banks. When I say the interest rates, like right now we're in a situation where they are trying to stimulate growth. This is why I always say the stock market is rigged. More often than not, they want the things to grow. They just want to make they want to make their money too. They're making their power, right? But they get their money on both sides. They get their money from growth and they get money from crashing shit. So they have incentive to insert a Great Depression, real estate stock market, real estate crash, .com bubble. They have incentive to do these things. It's no wonder the last 7 of the 8 last major stock market crashes, we see the Federal Reserve had raised interest rates in those situations. So when I say raise interest rates, banks be borrowing money against each other and from them, right? The lower the interest rate is, which is to say the less money that they have to pay the bank back that they borrowed from, the more incentive they have to lend the money up, because they're going to make money on the spread. They know if I can take money over here and only have to pay it back at 1%, now I can lend money to fucking Apple or whatever and charge them 3% and I'll make the spread. They're going to want to lend it out. But if they have to lend money over here and they got to pay like 5%, right? Now, mind you, they set the interest rates for the long term too. So if the short-term interest rate is 5%, but the long-term interest rate is 3%, guess what? They're losing money on that spread. They're not incentivized to lend out the money at that point. And the only people they may be interested in lending to is growing company, valuable. I can't even give y'all that much. y'all got to be in the course to get some of that. But when the spreads is thin, they want to lend to certain type of companies. When it's wide, they want to lend to certain type of companies. And when it's inverted and negative, this is when your 2008s happen, your .com bubbles happen, your 1929 Great Depressions happen, your 1987 flash crashes happen. When these happen, there's certain type of companies they want to lend to as well, if any at all. Because this shows the importance of credit. You could be a company that does not make $1 in profit for years, but yet still be one of the most valuable valuable companies in the country. I'm talking, for example, like Netflix. It wasn't until the year 2020 that they actually made $1 in profit. But you would have thought they was the number one company this whole time. It's because they always had access to credit. This is why credit is important, right? This is why I tell people, like, something that was kind of getting on my nerve, right? It was a while where our people was making fun of people trying to encourage our people to get LLCs, right? And they'll say, yo, they can tell you to get an LLC, but they don't tell you need a business plan. They don't tell you this. Everybody doesn't need to start a business, yada, yada, yada. Yo, if y'all knew how this shit worked, you would understand that perhaps you don't need a business plan or even an actual operating business, but you can still benefit off of an LLC. Just having an LLC could be beneficial. Or a corporation would be even better. C Corp, S Corp, don't matter. Well, well, depends. It can matter depending on what you're trying to do. But a corporation of a corporate structure, whether LLC, S corp, or a C corp, one of the three, just having one can be beneficial to you because the credit and benefits and tax breaks that you get under those entities, as opposed to as an actual human being, is actually a world of difference. A world of difference. Now, what does this say? Because you as a human being, they will not give you credit if you can't provide some type of income. There isn't a situation outside of authorized users which they're closing that loophole as well. But if you were just somebody out here, no income, no credit history, or credit profile for that matter, they're not giving you any credit. Or if they do give you some credit, if you can get $1,000, you could teach a course. If you can get $1,000 with no work history, credit history, no none of that. Outside of the only thing that could perhaps help you is being an authorized user on somebody else's credit card, but many lenders and banks and got hit to that loophole, and that's not even beneficial like it used to be. But this is turning into a credit course. But I do need to get another point across, because there's a company right out the gate. There are dozens, maybe even hundreds on the low, but for sure a good dozen that's gonna give you something right out the gate. No credit history, no income, no nothing. Just for having a tax ID. You don't even have to. With some of these companies, you don't even have to be specific, officially a company yet. You don't even have to have your articles of incorporation in many cases, but many might not even understand what I'm talking about with that. That's what's necessary to be officially considered a business. You need to have your articles of incorporation and a tax ID, right? So let's say a person starts to establish some credit and income, and then we have the company. Let's move forward 12 months. That person, if they play their cards out, like if you, under my guidance, you can get access to what? Good, I'll probably get you access to a good 40, maybe if you're lucky, 100 bands. Messing with, but the fact that you gotta get with a goddamn person who knows an above average amount of knowledge should tell you something. But with a company, you making 3x or higher, and you can get access to that, access to 3 times that or higher. This just shows the favoritism of companies and the importance of credit, because if you was to make that LLC and then not even have a business plan, just let it sit, or get a corporation and just let it sit. Come 2-3 years later, you could have either been building credit on it, or you could sell it, and you could sell it for thousands of dollars. In some cases, tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how old it is. You can set up a shelf corp the right way, and don't even have an operating business. Set it up in a certain type of way. After a while, you can sell it for 10 bands. But they tell you, yo, you can't see without the operator. Yo, y'all just don't understand all the dynamics of this shit. That just shows your ignorance and your mindset. Well, we're supposed to be talking about the US dollar. How did we get on this? Well, you understand how this shit works. We've moved from service and direct resources, like direct products and services, like barter system, to credit, to a derivative of credit, to a derivative of that credit. And then, so that's the new money. That's what I'm proposing. What we call credit today, that's the actual money. And then the money, which used to be the credit of the actual money, which was the gold, which was the service, we just keep coming with these new derivatives over and over and over and over and over. And each derivative we get, it comes easier to obtain, and then that's how we get to the shit that it really came from. So, the goal is to create value. We don't want to live in a world where a green piece of paper with some dead former slave master on there is more valuable than the home you live in, than the phone you use, than the car you drive, than the clothes you wear. If it's Armageddon, you don't want to say, yo, give me that paper. No, you're going to need some clothing, some shelter, some weapons, something of that nature. So with that being the case, now we know we shouldn't just be holding on to cash. Inflation happens at an average about 2.5% per year. So what does this mean you're doing with the bank? Okay, so now let's do this. There's 3 major groups as it pertains to the circulation of this of money, what we call the dollar, right? How does this, because we have businesses, we have banks, which is a business, but walk with me. Then we have the people. How do these 3 groups make their money, and then how does money leave these 3 groups, and where is it flowing to? That's the questions we have to ask. Once we understand that concept, then we could come with a sound strategy to be in the correct position. It's all about positioning. And we're all in business, whether we know it or not. And that's the thing. You know, it's hard to win a war that you don't know that you are in. It's hard to win a game that you don't know that you are playing. If you was just put on some random hardwood floor that had a glass square with some orange cylinder with this white net hanging down, and then you see somebody with a Laker jersey with number 23 and James on the back of his jersey because it's LeBron James, and he coming down and he just dunks on you, and you don't even know what none of this shit is with this orange ball because you never even heard of the concept of basketball, and the crowd goes wild and you look up and he has this score and they say, yo, LeBron's kicking your ass. You're like, yo, I don't even know what's going on. Nobody told me. Y'all just put me on the score. I didn't even know I was playing. What is this? Basketball? What the fuck is that? That's the case for human beings with money. They don't train you how to use money, no none of that, and they all go on a war with you. These banks were scheming on eating off y'all asses with the mortgages. That was a cash cow for these banks. A lot of their bread came from mortgages off the people's back. They say, yo, we got a relationship with the powers that be to actually create the money, right? But the way our business model is set up, we get our product from you, the people. We're going to encourage the people to give us the money to lend back to you and put you in debt and say, yo, you got to pay us back for the next 30 years. Basically, till you die. Because what you get? Retirement age is what, 65? Life expectancy might get another 10 years after that. And then even when you look into the etymology of mortgage, it basically says a death pledge, a pledge to death. That's basically what it means when you look at the etymology. Don't take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. Okay? So the people give the bank the money to lend back to the people to have shelter over them, and then don't let them mess up because they'll take that shelter right back. And it's not like they'll leave. You could have been paying on that house for 20 years, and then you run into hard times and not be able to make the payments. It's not like they leave you with 20 years worth of value. No, they take the whole joint back. And if you want to start over with them, you got to start from scratch. That's how they get you. So that's how the banks do it, right? So now we see a situation, and then and remember, there's inflation. So this dollar that you are selling to the bank, you're selling your money to the bank, you know. But there's inflation. The dollar loses value of 2.5% annually. You're essentially saying, here, bank, I got $1 for you. You can have it for 97, 98 cents. Bank is like, bet. Well, in return for that, we'll give you 0.0001% if you let us hold it. Let's save it. And I mean, even back in the day, a savings, if you was lucky, you might have got 1%, 2% in the return. So maybe you could break even at selling at that, but you still may be paying a little bit. So people sell their money to the bank at a discount, and then the bank sells the money back to the people at a premium. That's that dynamic of the money flow. Then we have the businesses and the people. The people are selling their time to the businesses. And people are selling their time like they got it for wholesale. They're selling time for cheap. Goddamn $12, $15 an hour. selling their time to the businesses. So we have the people selling money at a discount to the bank and selling their time at a discount to the businesses. It's no wonder why everybody's living in goddamn poverty and are slaves. Because both the businesses and the banks have a vertical integrated monopoly on the people. Well, I can't say monopoly because it's kind of working in a tandem, the banks and the businesses. But the bank had the same relationship with the businesses, but the businesses are creating value, or at least perceived value, enough value for the people to buy their products and services from them. So after the business gets done buying your time for the cheap, all the money that they paid you, underpaid you for, they sell you products and services, so they get that money right back anyway. So you're giving the bank free product to sell back to you, and then you're using your time, the one asset that you don't give back, to generate money for the business that they give you crumbs of, and then sell you shit to get that crumb back for you from you. It's crazy. And meanwhile, the banks and the business relationship is the bank take that money, lend it to the business with way more benefits, cheaper and more willingly. And the business takes the money from the people, pays it back. So the businesses and the banks is winning, and the people are suffering. So what do you need to do? You need to get yourself in a position. Now we're starting to see even more importance of maybe why we need to have a business. Businesses get treated so much better than human beings. I try not to do anything as a human being in this matrix, because human beings is treated like shit in this matrix. People love the corporations. They love the businesses. So we don't get mad. We just adjust. And then once you get into position, because even think of it like this. What is a bank? Like, I like to pay attention to words, and I really don't believe in coincidences when it comes to words. A bank is what? A bank is the up and down part that controls the flow of the water. But in terms of, or a currency, like a current, just like with money and currency, the bank is controlling the money flow. And most of that money is flowing where? To itself, which it shouldn't. That's where a lot of things got fucked up. That's why the relationship between the businesses, banks, and the people is so imbalanced. The banks shouldn't really be in business. They should just be controlling the flow. But they decided, we're going to flow some of that money our way, because after all, there's people over there. So we got to position ourselves to be where that money is flowing to, which is in the bank's pockets when it's operating as a business, and businesses. Or anything that's creating value, anything that creates a situation to where the bank can profit. And it doesn't have to be malicious all the time. Or even if it is, we got to learn how to balance these things. So even like me as a consumer, I position myself to where, okay, cool, I know I'll be buying consumer products and services, but the banks have, some banks have offers, if you will, where they'll cut you in. So when I have a certain credit card and you get cash back, how are they even able to give you cash back for spending? Because the banks are, or more so merchants, are charging businesses a percentage to facilitate the transaction between the customer and the business, which wasn't always the case. And now we see that these banks are just getting greedy. They got to get their hand in every kind of way, because when it was just cash, they wasn't even able to do that. But now they made it a situation where they're trying to make it a cashless society. So now in order to facilitate transactions, they go on a piece of the cut. But they're willing to cut you in on it. So this leaves that to our advantage. So I don't even buy nothing without using my credit card, so I can at least participate in some of the profits as well. Everything gets a little different that way. It's a whole lot more freedom once you start to just look at things a little different and put yourself in a position to grab some money and be wherever that bank is flowing the current, so you can pick some of that up. Where's the money going? Follow the money flow. What helps follow the money flow? Look where the bank is directing it. When you want to start a business, guess what? One of the most popular business ideas out there is getting into real estate. But if you create a company and your company indicates that you deal with real estate, they consider you high risk and they don't want to lend you money. That should tell you something. Maybe all this real estate talk isn't what it's cracked up to be. Just maybe. And really, that's not the only thing. It's different genres to where if the bank figured you're in that line of business, they won't deal with you. But certain genres, they'll be more willing to than average to extend you credit to help you, because clearly they must see it as big business. Just think, why would a bank, just think for yourself. Hold on, my battery. Just think for yourself. If one person came up to you for a loan, and let's just imagine that the law is of no consequence. If somebody say, yo, I got this business idea where I'm going to be selling shoestrings, and then somebody else comes to you and say, I got this business idea where I'm selling crack. Which one are you more willing to give you? And you ain't even heard their business plan. It's just the genre. You know that, yo, I know how crack get down. Like I said, we're assuming morals and laws don't have nothing to do with it, just pure money. You're probably going to be more willing to lend the money to the crack dealer before you even see the business plan. You understand what I'm saying? You'll be more interested in his business plan. So we got to follow that. But, at the end of the day, like I say, the goal is to make the dollar 2 to 3% less valuable than it was the year prior. This is what causes the stock market to go up, because the products and services that the businesses that are listed on the stock exchange are becoming more valuable, thus they're making more money. That's how that works. Same thing with the real estate market. These houses are becoming more valuable. The land is getting more valuable. It's all in relationship. We have like the dollars, the real estate market, the stock market, cryptocurrencies, and it's like all in the relation. When these three things start to go up, this one's probably going down. It's impossible for the value of the US dollar and the stock market. We could just stop there. It's impossible for the value of both of those things to go up at the same time. Guess what? Because people keep telling me, the value of the dollar is going down. In 2008, the value of the dollar went up. 2001, dot-com bubble, value of the dollar went up. 1929, Great Depression, dollar to value went up. When the dollar is becoming more valuable than the products and services, that's shown historically to be a bad thing. So, I'll end it there. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. If y'all want to inquire about learning how to build your credit, learn how to build a proper business, build business credit, any of these things, go to blackandmore.com, or you can even hit me up, email me, whatever, and I'll link you to a course, because these are ideas worth exploring, because it'll put you in a whole new position. I'm talking like you'll learn that, it's not even necessarily about making more money, even though that, of course, that helps, and of course that's what I teach. But even just how you flow your money around in your own life can create way more freedom and financial freedom for you, just from how the money flows, just from how you flow the money. So that's that, man. Free more failure. Check you out on the next one.